so we can get the full commentary experience for you guys. Great handling, you know, I always get into a Subaru. You know how it handles. Very predictable brakes. Oh my gosh. Feel free to chime in, Speed Sane.
Oh, I will. I need to warm up my voice first.
Sure. Thanks. Alright. I'm gonna take it out of manual mode. Let's see how that behaves.
Is the wallowing from the tires or the suspension? I imagine tires.
What wallow? Oh, you mean the wallow?
How it
sounds?
shimmies a little bit on bumps, or how the body kind of rotates on itself relative to the tires.
These are
Hitting mid.
You know, these tires are meant for light off-roading. It's like the whole season that you can take on a little dirt path. So there's going to be a lot of sidewall flex. This is also a very soft suspension, so I wouldn't hold it against it to wallow in that respect. Very predictable brakes. Obviously tending towards understeer, as most stock manufactured cars are. Totally fine. We deal with it. For the sharper turns, I have to take my hands off the 9 and 3 position, but usually I can keep it that way.
So far, the stability control or whatnot doesn't seem too intrusive. Yesterday, we were driving a Corolla, and it cut power very early, and
Frustratingly, because okay, there are some cars that cut power on corner exit this phase when you're turning out, right? The Corolla, or a lot of Toyotas, I should say, have this horrible habit of doing it after the corner entry phase when you think everything's done and settled, the car's pointed out. But we're talking about this car, right? The Crosstrek. It doesn't seem to do that at all. Most Subaru traction controls or stability controls aren't very intrusive. Beautiful day out here. Look at that. People always want harder suspension for their street cars. That's not always what you want.
Fuck harder suspension.
Yeah. Exactly. If you're on a smooth track, it makes more sense. You know, unless you're a track slut. Just stick to the stock and see how you like it. Well, there's a Corolla we've been talking about. Review for another day. Tournament for another night. You want to ask me some questions? See how this thing is.
I don't know. I was just gonna say there's something kind of satisfying about driving a car with body roll. That, with talkative tires and a low limit of grip.
It's because you're driving it near the limit without too much stress. You know, it's easy to do.
Oh, honestly, the front to rear balance does not seem too bad. Obviously getting a lot of understeer, but you are using the back tires too.
Absolutely, yeah. You want to balance those two. It sucks when a car is just overloading the fronts and the back is just dragging along. This one, here I'll do like a quick trail. Bad example. It's hard to trail brake.
The thing is, obviously, cars from the factory understeer, but not all equally so. Sometimes some cars are just awful. You never even begin to use the rear tires because they lose grip so soon in the front. This is perfectly safe for anybody to drive.
As we say
but
that.
it's still closer to neutral. That's nice.
You still need a brain to drive it, right? There's some cars, specifically like the GTI and Golf. Sorry, GTI and Golf owners, but you can act very brainless and still be fine. This one, there's still definitely a process going on.
How are the brakes holding up?
They're holding up well. Obviously, the limiting factor is the tires, so it doesn't have to do much work to, have ABS start happening. Oh boy. Okay.
Take a couple corners and then let me know, how does the steering weight up through the corner? Is it very linear?
It's very linear.
And does it communicate understeer? Does it lighten up when you get understeer?
It doesn't lighten up or heavy up like a lot of cars. In terms of communication, kinesthetic communication through the steering wheel, it's not too much, you know. There is just some very high frequency vibrations. Most of what I'm doing to predict the car just comes from the body roll, and not the body roll, but just the movement of the weight transfer itself, rather than the kinesthetics. Definitely need to know the.
You should try manual mode.
Okay, let's fuck with manual mode. Go ahead.
There you go.
Actually, you know what? You want to shift for me? Let's pretend that it's the best shifting.
Oh, can I do that with this?
Absolutely. Oh wait, no, it's paddle shifters. Just kidding. One of the biggest concerns with transmissions like these is overheating. You know, as we probably haven't mentioned yet, this is a CVT. You can probably hear it by the whining of the belt, and it seems to have held up until now. You know, look, I'm going full throttle, second gear. It's not letting me downshift, and this is the max power that it can give me. Not the best, but we make do with what we have. Yeah, sticking to 3,000 RPM. There are no warnings yet. Sometimes they do that.
Also much appreciated, the A-pillars are not that thick.
No, they're not. They're very thin A-pillars for a safe, tall crossover is what it is. It's a crossover.
Does it feel like a crossover?
Yes, but it feels like a good crossover. I think there's a negative stigma to crossovers who don't performance drive it, and of course it's not going to be as good as a low-slung sedan, but it's not bad. They're not bad. CR-V's better.
I'm thinking compared to the Corolla we drove, though, the body control, the amount of roll, it doesn't feel any worse.
Oh, here, maybe now's the time to demonstrate the Subaru Eyesight to people who don't know what it is. Oh geez, this thing's dying. So watch.
Let's put it back in automatic.
All right. Well, you need to move. Window. Asshole.
Psych. I'm sorry. Dude, that didn't go great.
Introduce yourself. Who you is, why do they care about listening to you?
I is Speed Saint. You care about listening to me because I really enjoy driving, and I've driven. We're gonna see how the car handles and just see if it checks those basic boxes.
Right. So, you know, you've heard my spiel about it. It's a nice, cozy car.
Well, let's get some insight into what I'm doing. The first thing I want to do is inspect the steering. I'm looking to see if, as you approach the limit of grip, the steering should get heavier and heavier in a very linear fashion.
Windows. Okay, so it should be giving you feedback as you turn in the wheel.
So sometimes when I do that, I actually use one hand, so I can be really clear about this.
Beautiful stuff.
On center feels a little dead.
What do you mean by on center?
Okay, so in this kind of range, it's a commuter car. It's a car that wants to track straight. It doesn't have that willing turn in of a sports car. But that's a given, so.
Not always a given, you know. There are some crossovers, like manufactured by BMW, Buick, that perform very beautifully.
That's more a matter of alignment, so let's forget about that. Back to the basic question, does the steering weigh up? Yes, it does. It's not a huge difference, but it's enough. The steering itself is pretty numb in terms of communicating bumps, road texture, things like that. So it's kind of your typical modern, I imagine it's electrically boosted steering. It's numb, but it does weight up. Now the next question is, if I go past the limit of grip, does this steering communicate that? So I'm gonna mess around with that for a second.
Not on this corner. Maybe so.
I think it does. And the fact that I'm saying I think it does kind of tells you that it's not super obvious.
I should explain to the audience, that's obviously not the right way to go about the corner, but that's a way to kind of test out the grip and approachability of a car.
Yeah. You go slower than you know the corner is, and then you kind of mess around with it. But I know the car's understeering. The tires tell you. It's not a big deal. So let's see, what next? We could do the brakes. Again, you just want them to be linear as you brake harder and harder, and see if they give any feedback when you're at the limit of grip. But really, you get that feedback more from your butt, not the brakes.
Right, so how's the butt, not with the butt dyno, but the butt kinesthetics going right here? I know it's a very cushy, comfortable car. Kind of nullifies a lot of the high frequency vibrations.
I think the talkative tires really help with the driving. It's super easy to drive. I've been in cars where you have this really numb steering, and it just makes it difficult, especially in a larger car like the Charger. Remember? The Charger we drove, or the Challenge Charger?
Oh, yeah.
And it's this big boat, and the steering is so numb, and it doesn't weight up at all, that it's actually kind of getting in your way. This one I can do what I need to. Not a lot of opportunities to test out hard braking, so...
You knew I was about to ask that too. Definitely this is the uphill.
Braking feels fine. I can't comment on it more without really testing it.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
So we'll go to chassis balance next. Again, stock alignment definitely plays into that. The attorneys don't want the car to oversteer.
It's built by lawyers, not engineers at that point, definitely.
But that's what we're wondering. From the factory, how neutral can you get it? So we'll mess around with trail braking and how quickly we dial the steering in to see if we can get it to even oversteer. I'm bored of driving already.
You're already bored of driving? Well...
Yeah.
Oh, perfect timing. Look at that.
Say hi.
All right.